Hi, this is Mike Gant, and this video series is about biblical living. And this time we're going to talk about decision making. This will be the first of two parts. I'll have a story for you today. We're going to study in the Bible on Nabal and Abigail, and then I'll have a different Bible passage to look at next week. But the common theme through both of these stories will be the subject of decision making. So, and as always, I'm looking at things particularly from the man's point of view. This website hosts the book, The Duty of a Man, and that's my primary focus, is to help men understand how to fulfill their duty to God and form and lead a family. And of course, a wife is the most important aspect of that. And then that implies there will be children as well to teach. So it's for the whole family, but I'm focusing primarily on the leader's responsibility, because no one can lead in his place. So this story is from 1 Samuel chapter 25. And as I said, it's the story of Nabal and Abigail, married couple. Let's see what happens. I'll be doing a lot of reading today because this is a lengthy story, but it's interesting. A lot to learn about how decisions are made, and particularly how a man and a woman each make decisions in their own way, and how you reconcile when they disagree. So I start at verse 2 of 1 Samuel 25. Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel, and the man was very rich, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. So he's doing well for himself. Nabal, this is Nabal's place. They haven't named him yet, but that's who they're talking about. And it came about that while he was shearing his sheep in Carmel, now the man's name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail, and the woman was intelligent and beautiful in appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in his dealings. And he was a Calebite, meaning he was a descendant of Caleb, who was a Jew. These were Jewish people in the Old Testament. That David heard in the wilderness that Nabal was shearing his sheep. So David sent 10 young men. David had already defeated Goliath by this time, but he wasn't yet the king of Israel. Saul was the king, and David was trying to avoid getting killed, because Saul viewed David as a threat to his throne, even though David was always loyal to him. So, verse 5, so David sent 10 young men, and David said to the young men, "Go up to Carmel, visit Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus you shall say, 'Have a long life, peace be to you, and peace be to your house, and peace be to all that you have.' Now I have heard," this is all the message from David to Nabal that David told his servants to deliver on his behalf. "Now I have heard that you have shearers. Now your shepherds have been with us, and we have not insulted them, nor have they missed anything all the days they were in Carmel. Ask your young men," you can say Carmel if you want. None of us were around back then, so we don't really know how they pronounced anything. And besides all that, they weren't speaking English. So however you want to pronounce a word in the Bible is fine with me. "Ask your young men, and they will tell you. Therefore, let my young men find favor in your eyes, for we have come on a festive day. Please give whatever you find at hand to your servants and to your son David." So here's David with his guys out there. They've been kind of keeping the peace while they were around there. So this rancher named Nabal was not troubled by bandits or anything like that. And David's saying, "Hey, you're shearing your sheep, so you got a lot of extra wool there. Anything you can spare to help us, me kind of feeding my men, I'd really appreciate it." Verse 9, when David's young men came, they spoke to Nabal according to all these words in David's name. Then they waited. By the way, that gives us some idea what it means to speak in Jesus' name. They gave him these words in David's name. Then they waited. But Nabal answered David's servants and said, "Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse?" Jesse was his father. "There are many servants today who are each breaking away from his master. He was alluding to the fact that it looked to him like David was breaking away from Saul instead of supporting him. He didn't know the whole story. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my meat that I have slaughtered from my shears and give it to men whose origin I do not know? Now you recall back earlier in this passage, it had said, this is probably Samuel writing this. He says, the woman was intelligent and beautiful in appearance, but the man was harsh and evil in his dealings. He's harsh and evil. So he's a knucklehead. And he's just popping off his mouth to David's men. Verse 12, so David's young men retraced their way and went back. And they came and they told David according to all these words. David said to his men, each of you gird on his sword. David was a man of action. He didn't pontificate. He didn't huff and puff. He just said, get your swords. So each man girded on his sword, and David also girded on his sword. And about 400 men went up behind David, while 200 stayed with the baggage. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, see, she didn't know about any of this. So one of these servants tells her what happened. The servant says to Abigail, behold, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, and he scorned them. Yet the men were very good to us, and we were not insulted, nor did we miss anything as long as we went about with them while we were in the fields. They were a wall to us both by night and by day. All the time we were with them tending the sheep. Now, therefore, know and consider what you should do, for evil is plotted against our master and against all his household, and he is such a worthless man that no one can speak to him. You don't want people having to say things like that about you. He's a worthless man, and no one can say anything to him. It's just not a good place to be. You want to be the kind of person that people can approach, and like me, somebody could say, Mike, or even Dad, or even Mr. Gant. A little, you're acting kind of horsey here. Now maybe they wouldn't say it that way to me, but anybody ought to be able to come up to me if I'm out of line, or if I'm making a mistake, or if I'm just doing something like, okay, I'm not staying in my lane. I'm riding over the dividers there. Somebody could say, well, that's an old man there. We need to tell him to keep his car in the lanes. Maybe he should even turn in his license. You want to be the kind of person people can talk to. That doesn't mean you automatically have to listen and do everything people say. You got to make your own judgments. But, sometimes you might get to a point where you're like, well, I don't know, but if all of you feel like I shouldn't be driving anymore, maybe I shouldn't. But the point is, don't be someone that everyone's afraid to talk to. Don't be the kind of person that everybody's got to walk on eggshells. But you don't need me telling you all that. You know all that. We're here to learn more about decision making. But Nabal is just, as it says here, he's a worthless man. Now, looks like we're going to take more than a couple of episodes to do this, so this was indeed the first one, but I don't know that we'll get it all done by the second one either. But we'll stop here at verse 17. That's a natural place to stop. Abigail has been alerted as to the problem here that Nabal has created. David's men had been there. They had made sure nothing was... They had weapons. They could have taken anything from Nabal anytime they wanted, but they never did. Never did even ask for anything. But David found himself needing help, and he had protected these people, and they had done well. Nabal had done well for himself, and now he's just asking for a little reciprocity. Can you kind of return the favor a little bit? And Nabal was just too hard-headed to even listen. Even if he wasn't a decent guy, and even if he thought David wasn't a decent guy, he should have at least thought, well, if I don't give this David guy something, he could come and just take it anytime he wants, and he might harm my wife, or who knows what he might do. I don't want to get him all riled up. He's got hundreds of men following him. I don't have hundreds of soldiers following me. But Nabal was not only not a just man, he was not even a wise man. And we'll see what happens next time. Talk to you then.